Hello and welcome to Autistic Radio on Sunday, sponsored by coldpack.co.uk. If you use their website to buy your cold pack or a clinic supply of cold packs, we benefit here.
Hello everyone, this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 18th of January 2026, and this is where we go through posts that are shared on the autisticradio.com Facebook page. And the first post this evening is from Flourish with Neurodiversity, who's a coach helping you flourish and thrive, not just survive. Neurodiversity coaching and services, ADHD, AUDHD, and Tourette's, adults and children, sensory wellness, work, school, PIP, DLA support, dyslexia assessments, training, and resources. And I've shared the following. If you are neurodivergent, you may experience a delayed reaction to large events or things that push you outside of your comfort zone and window of tolerance. Sometimes the reaction doesn't come during the thing, it comes after. You get through the event, meeting, appointment, the social time, the performance, and it even goes very well. Then, later, your nervous system crashes. This is especially common for autistic, ADHD, Tourette's, and other neurodivergent. While you're in it, adrenaline carries you. Focus, mask, regulate, push through anxiety and sensory load. When it's over, the body finally feels safe enough to release. That release can look like deep exhaustion, increased tics or stimming, emotional shutdown or overwhelm, needing quiet, stillness, or withdrawal. None of this means it went badly. Often it happens because it mattered. A few gentle ways to support your nervous system afterward. Just sense the input, dim lights, quiet, familiar textures. Let tics and stims happen without managing them. Hydrate and eat something grounding. Avoid replaying or analysing the event. That can wait until your brain has capacity. Rest without needing to justify it, even if this is active rest, still requiring some level of stimulation, such as something creative to help with the transition. You can be proud and depleted. Success doesn't cancel out nervous system costs. If you have an aftermath, this is normal and signs your body and nervous system need rest and recovery. This is something I'm experiencing today after doing something out of my comfort zone. It was incredibly rewarding, but equally heightened my nervous system. Spending time with my dog, comfy tracksuit, hood up, low lighting, and quiet.
I like the idea of active rest.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there, Ray. It's almost planning it as well, knowing how you're going to feel and having a strategy, in my mind, is a way of reducing some of the anxiety of the event and also reducing some of the effects of the event, because I know afterwards I'm going to have this active rest.
Have you always known that, Jules? And the reason I ask is that I was so recently diagnosed, but I now realize there were things I would do. And also my daughter, who is neurodivergent in one of these ways, used to sort of model it, you know. She called it chilling, but she had specific ways of doing it and continues to today.
I don't want to speak in absolutes, but I feel that my experience of being diagnosed wasn't the enormous revelation that it has been described by other people. I don't feel as though learning about my autism has, to the same extent other people describe, given me keys to my life. It's given me context, but I'm not doing an enormous amount different now to what I did before. I just have ways of describing it. However, I don't have a control. There's not a twin. So maybe it's just not noticeable to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I practically have a twin. I have a sister 1 year different in age. And even this week we were talking about some of the things that she did to support me. And they just came intuitively to her.
I think also if you take my daughter's experience, she was brought up by two neurodivergent parents who were very actively parenting. we weren't entirely busy with our own lives and careers. We prioritized that part of our life, even as young people. So she would say her experience as a youngster was very much formed by particularly her mum getting her and knowing her without having to think it round, because there are so many similarities that in me to my daughter that my wife could then relate to in her, but also in my daughter to my wife, so she could relate to it. It's just been a very fortunate situation that way.
Earlier we were talking about, overthink, which is like prior to the event. This seems to be talking about a situation where you're okay getting there, although it's out of your comfort zone, but there's no insistence here on overthink or prior anxiety. So it's getting there and then the aftermath. So the subject here, as I'm assuming, is the aftermath and not what we were talking about earlier, which is like a prior kind of anxiety. So come down from that, and that aftermath is that you can't force yourself to relax, which is why I was impressed by the mention there of active rest. If it's 6:30, you can't force yourself to go to bed. You may just want to just distract yourself with something creative to tune out your body, to just get into a kind of zone. But yeah, and what others think.
I think you're right, Ray. There's this thing that I've tried. Do it for 5 or 10 minutes. I might get the name wrong, but is it called Nidra or Nidra yoga? You're awake, but if you practice it, it's not meditation and it's kind of not yoga, but it's like this in-between thing. But if you can't do it, I would say a bath or your thing of choice, like just saying, in my house when the kids were growing up, if it had been a big day for everybody, I'd just say to these 2 small children, there will be no more talking today.
In the text, Robbie says, I knew I was autistic more than 20 years before I was diagnosed. Says, the word performance jumps out at me. And Robbie also says, I don't rest doing nothing. I would do something like play music. And while reading that, about the sort of come down in the rest period after the performance or masking or coping or basically just doing, and then, full of energy, and then full blast, doing what you want to do, getting through something, whatever, and then coming to the period of rest where it's difficult just to stop and do nothing, unless it's total exhaustion on my part, which would be sleep or at least doze. I do identify with what some of the things it was said in terms of doing something isn't too overburdening. It's something that comes natural, like something creative, like arts, in terms of playing music, writing, drawing, painting, and other creative methods that can be done. That's a great way to kind of relax and calm down from all that, energized experience in terms of you're tired, but you're doing something at your own pace afterward.
It feels that what's being described here is a concentrated performance. Some might call it masking, some might call it performance, because that's often what it is. Musicians talk about the after-gig routine, the thing that they need to do to distract them. Unfortunately, for many of them, it's drugs and alcohol and other things, but some have other ways of distracting or putting their mind onto something else so that they are fully engaged in a gentle way that doesn't have the same issues and feelings of what they've just done, to stop us going through the running through your mind over what could have been better at what you've just done, that piece of work or that meeting, whatever.
The next post is from Nell Harris, easily inspired, who's an artist and a neuro-affirming advocate, author, illustrator of Neurodiversity Without Their Terminology series, AUDHD, based in Australia, and shared the following. The first 2 pages of my new book, called My Tasks Feel Like Mountains, which is now available for pre-order. Because this book isn't having a book launch event, autoimmune got my spoons too low. I wanted to do something special and launch something with it in a different way, where you can get the first part of it for free with this new piece of my soul. Oh, I mean story. I've been working on this plan since September last year, so it's pretty special to my heart. So it shows the first page of Nell's book, cartoon drawing, and it shows climbing up mountains. Tasks and chores can seem like mountains, some feeling impossible or too tough to climb. That feeling can happen even when the task isn't hard or that it wouldn't take much time.
You really have to see the illustration. It is very effective, It's beautiful. I guess first I wondered, is this for children? But then when you're zooming in on the pictures, I like the close-ups of the illustration. It's for anybody. And the sky.
Just to add, it's Task Paralysis, children's book, Australian author, neuroaffirming, neurodivergent.
Can you imagine if these things were available to children when you were young? By you, I just mean anybody not a child now.
That's quite a thought, Teresa. I often think that. And in isolation, how would that kind of book exist in that world we were a part of when we were young? Because everything else would not have changed, but this piece of information would come in. A wee bit like some kind of secret kind of literature.
I'm thinking of the parent reading it to their autistic kid or neurodivergent kid and then reading it also for themselves. A little bit like they have this well-known, well-regarded Bluey children's program that really is a family program and helps the parents to think about their role in child rearing as well.
It's a classic anxiety dream, It's the climbing of a mountain, especially one that steep.
Robbie says that when he was young, he was considered a naughty child. Lots of tasks are difficult when he's depressed because of lack of motivation and lack of energy. It takes him over. And he reminds people that what is easy for one person might be difficult for another. The only thing I've put down there is to say that depression is really tough, Robbie.
Also, the word motivation makes you feel, I don't know, energy seems really good. When people talk about motivation, not you talking about it, Robbie, but the world, makes you feel like you have to be motivated, but you can't be, and that's okay.
Like varying concepts of achievement, isn't it? As Robbie's just said in text, often things are demands set by society.
Yes, I've been feeling quite down recently, quite energy zapped, and my motivation has been really sort of what's going on here, and I'm really frustrated. And even though it's not as bad as it was at one time, it did remind me when I was in school and going through depression and stress. And the motivation just to get up in the morning, to go to school and that environment at that time. This is before the diagnosis, so at the time I wasn't sure where I was in the world. You just felt like this fool. And sometimes that sort of feeling would be relieved a little bit because I had a circle of friends and we all kind of said silly things. Like, see the humour thing. The humour and then it'd be a laugh and then it'd be a wee relief from it. But then it'd be back to reality, getting into a classroom or travelling to school even and going through all these things. And it's all demands. It's all you must do. You must do this by this age or you must do this way. And if you look so obviously different, you're a problem. And problem is being polite about it. So, and that's when it does feel like mountains, I suppose.
It really does. And Jules was saying it's helpful if a parent is reading this to a child. It'd be helpful if it was in the school library too. Or, you know what I mean.
Ray said in the text, core wound being reactivated.
That's a wee phrase I use to myself sometimes when I feel like what you were feeling there, Harry. Something from your past seems to be happening again. And yet you're not in the same situation, but you're thinking, why am I feeling like I felt when I was like a teenager? And sometimes it's like some of the core wounds are like, things that hurt us the most or had the most impact are at formative times, like when we're at that age, like adolescence, or even younger, and they can recur later on. It just needs a certain set of situations and factors, to let it come to the fore. A wee bit like, sort of like, a spot erupts in your body or something like that without getting too gross.
The next post is from Jens Den, Sanctuary for Neurodivergent Wellbeing, page, Health and Wellness website, Environmental Conservation Organisation, a sanctuary of understanding, a bridge between self-discovery and connection. Visibility and balance. I think it's incredibly important for autistic and otherwise neurodivergent people, children, young people, and adults to see other neurodivergent people visible in their own communities, running businesses, holding platforms, being listened to, being trusted for our insight. Too often, autistic people grow up only seeing non-autistic people positioned as the helpers, the experts, the ones with authority. That imbalance quietly teaches autistic kids that support always comes from elsewhere, never from within their own community. Only around 22% of autistic people are in employment, and it isn't because autistic people lack ability. It's because environments, systems, and expectations aren't built with us in mind. Visibility matters because it changes what feels possible. That's one of the reasons I started Jens Den, Sanctuary for Neurodivergent Wellbeing, to create an autistic-led space where neurodivergent people can see themselves reflected with dignity, capability, and pride. Question: when you were growing up, who did you see represented as the expert, and how did that shape what you believe is possible?
I like the idea of these safe spaces, but I don't often feel that they should be specifically autistic. Now, that might tie in with what's been said by this poster about, an earlier kind of conditioning or defining help as coming from, the non-autistic, say. But what is lacking for people who are autistic, maybe, or for this particular autistic person, is a space to be and to explore things that aren't generally offered by what's called a neurotypical conditioning. Now, I don't know if having just autistic people in that space would help me. It's something else. It's beyond all these categories. But it's definitely not prevalent in society the way it's run. So it's kind of, a novel space and rare. But all power to her for setting this up, yeah.
Regarding the question of who did you see represented, I can only look back in hindsight, but I do recall people who there was something about them, particularly librarians. And every once in a while, I, or maybe all of you, would be recognized by some person. And it felt good, but nobody was talking about it at the time, so we wouldn't have known at that time.
What I like about this post is it makes you think about how society is and how many autistic feel outside of society, not being able to fit in terms of getting employment, which we used as an example. Other things as well. It's that balance of being autistic should be accepted as a difference. But sometimes being autistic, you require help. Then again, anybody to a certain degree needs some sort of help. They don't need saviours, which a lot of people I think are trying to be. But you certainly need help and assistance, which I certainly get from family and friends. And it's to get positive role models. I'm just looking at the question again. Who did I see you represent as the expert? Well, usually the expert, when I was growing up, it depends what it was talking about. The expert would be a teacher or a doctor, or something along those lines. It's interesting. It opens up a whole conversation, and the visibility thing about feeling visible about feeling part of society rather being kind of feeling, shunned off it.
In my experience of dealing with professional people, they are not open to the idea of having peers taking any kind of active role. They like the idea of saying that they have taken what we say into account, but they want to control the whole space. They want to be the white savior, and they use every excuse they can. Robbie has written safeguard to keep them in the position where they are the people who are helping us. They are not open to enabling organisations like ours to be the people helping other autistic.
I was thinking this. I don't think it means, I think the question, but it just could be me reading it my way. Do you know what I mean? When you were growing up, who did you see represented as the expert? So I immediately thought of people who were experts in my field of interest when I was a kid. Like maybe they're called nerds or something now, because that's the way I behaved in my autistic portrayal. Not everybody behaves like a nerd, but as a child, I certainly did. I'm a nerd now. So sometimes in school, rather than accelerating me through all the grades, they would take me out of my class. Somebody in the school, like the science teacher or the librarian, would be in charge of occupying a lot of my time. And I think maybe somehow they knew, like they were sort of an expert. But then in the world, I just think they were like the librarians at the big libraries. But this is just me in my world. I don't know. That's what I was thinking they meant. I don't know if that's what they meant. But honestly, a geologist, some of them, it would have been great to be around one of those. Do you know what I mean?
It seems to me that this field of autism is so dynamic. It's been changing over the last 5 years, never mind the last 15 or 20 or 40 years. And so there are no experts in autism. There are people with knowledge and expertise and theories. But everything that has been said in the past, now looked at through modern lenses, fails to meet the mark completely. At least 60% of what was previously written about autism is no longer seen as valid. I'm making up numbers, but you get the point.
It took me the whole conversation to get the point. I didn't realize they were talking about experts in autism, but I think they must be. So I'm glad I didn't notice.
Robbie says, all my energy in my childhood was coping with being bullied. And Ray's asking, is expert neurotypical? And thinking about the expert thing, I wasn't thinking about an expert in autism. I was just thinking about expert in terms of full in life at the time I was growing up. And that's why I mentioned things like school teachers. I was thinking people in authority. Aside from my parents, well, I suppose they were an authority as well. It's like, they're the experts because they're the one that's teaching you or advising you about what's right and wrong and just, all different kind of things. And that's the way I took it. I never took it upon as autistic because when I was growing up, like many others, I didn't know I was autistic. It just felt different.
I was really badly bullied from pretty much the start of school up until I was about 13, 14. And I worked out there was a guy that everyone seemed to like because he was quite witty and funny. So I just said things that were witty and funny and it did ease off.
Thanks everyone's been involved. And thanks for everyone who has shared these posts for us to discuss. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 18th of January 2026, which is part of the Spectrum Voices conversation, which is live every Sunday, 5:55 to 7 PM UK time. And I look forward to doing the same next week. So thank you once again, and good night.
Autistic Radio is about us, it's for us, and it's from us. Autistic Radio is about you, it's for you, and it can be from you. We have every single Sunday drop in. 4:44 PM every Sunday. That's not live. That's us getting together, us talking, community. Every Sunday, Harry leads a 5:55 PM, a discussion around the Facebook page that he creates. Involve yourself by suggesting what we should talk about next. Share it with Harry. And then the bigger picture. Advocate. Use us. Speak to the world. Your project, your idea, your enthusiasm. We have a whole range of different programs that will fit what you want. As far as listening goes, there's some challenging stuff out there. Because amongst the identity, the entertainment, and the community, we also make serious programs with autism professionals, challenging their ideas and bringing what you say in other spaces to them. A lot of those are difficult listens, but it's a holistic gathering. It comes all together. Autistic Radio is very varied. We need a favour. To encourage us, we need you to share us. When you share us, you give autistic people power. When you share us, you make us impossible to ignore. When you repost on LinkedIn and Facebook and anywhere else, you're advocating for everybody in the autistic community. So pick the things that you're happy with and get them out there. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you from all of us.